Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I was joined earlier by Nick, and we're going to be doing a lot more of those sort of interview style questions and answers format, because what's happened so much is we get so many questions about the YouTube videos in great detail, and we get asked. Dishwasher, never leave a dishwasher on in the middle of Instagram Live. I get asked so many questions on the YouTube videos, and I thought it would be much better to get Nick on here to answer those. Give me 1 second. Turn that off. And I thought it'd be better to get him on there, the same as I did with Oliver, and then some of the other moderators are going to come on so that you can ask them questions that you had in relation to their videos, so that they get specifically covered. What we're trying to do is build up lots and lots of free videos on the YouTube channel and on the Facebook group, so that you have got so many free resources. We're currently having the YouTube channel translated into 10 different languages by a specialist studio, so they'll all be really well made for you guys, so that for any people that don't speak English, they've got those resources, because for so long the good information on OCD was primarily in English, and we wanted to change that. So that was one of the first things we were doing. We're working on. It's a big project at the moment. And then obviously with the Facebook group, we've got 10 moderators in there. So unlike a lot of forums and so on, like I was stuck in for years in the past, where no questions got answered and it was constant reassurance and negativity, we cover everything. Anything you want to ask me or the moderators or anyone in the Facebook group, you can just log into the Facebook group and ask questions at any time of day. That's what it's there for. Now, today I am going to be covering some questions and answers. So if you want to ask anything, just put it in the questions at the bottom here in the comments section, and I will cover those now. I was talking earlier with Nick all about motivation needed for recovery and building up that momentum, because for so many people, they don't have the life structure correct. And that's a key component. And that was one of the main components of a lot of my recovery, was getting that right, that bring it for the ride attitude. And that was a phrase that I made to describe not trying to get rid of anxiety, but learning to live your life with it coming on board, so that you're still doing everything with anxiety. So that it sets up that sort of not like waiting to get better before we live our life, but instead going and living our life and embracing our life straight away now. Now, when I set up OCDrecovery.com, our organization, I did that because I wanted to specifically target OCD, which is what I suffered from, but I also work with a range of other anxiety, all fear-based things. So anything where it's perspective-based fear, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and so on. All just basic fears, just fear, where we've a fear cycle. Name of OCD often makes it feel locked up and like we can't get out, and then we start to feel hopeless and think, oh my God, I've got the worst luck ever having this condition. And the worst term of all was the one pure OCD. I've always not liked that term, because it sort of gives a sort of more fine, concentrated form of OCD that we imagine is treatment resistant and we can't recover from. So that's what I didn't like, pure. And I often say, forget the word pure. It makes things complicated. It makes people feel lost and hopeless, not homeless. And so I like to say to people, well, if we're going to describe it, why don't we describe it as OCD? It's better than pure because of that reason. The only reason the term came about is because people weren't aware of OCD that happens just in your head. They were only aware of physical compulsions that went around with cleaning and so on. So any of the mental compulsions, a name was given to that, but a name wasn't needed to be given to that if awareness had been good enough for the general state of the disorder in total. So then you wouldn't have needed that name. So that was the next part of that was another thing that I wanted to really work on, sort of helping change that narrative there. And then what you've got is, if you think of OCD in general, it's that sort of generally locked, generally feeling sort of like you think when you get told you've got OCD, oh, I'm never going to get out of this. It's only fear. It's only a fear cycle, okay? And that's what I always used to like about the likes of, there's pros and cons to things that I liked about him. Tony Robbins, for example, is one of the most famous life coaches in the world. Has made huge change to the world in terms of perspectives and changing things in the now. Obviously, he's coming from a neuro-linguistic programming background, but it's all from a coaching position like that. What I liked about liked Tony Robbins was how sort of direct it was in the moment, making the change, looking at the changes in the specifics in the now. And then I specifically liked what Albert Ellis had done with changing, obviously getting under and changing our rational thinking, drawing on Greek and Roman philosophy so that we don't catastrophize things, so that we don't feel like we're creating these anxious cycles in our head that become more and more consuming. That sort of catastrophizing is what's putting our foot on the gas with anxiety, so to speak. So that really made a difference. So I wanted to look at really specifically making change in the now. That's where I was coming from. Real change in the now. So we've got to change our life structure as well as make that core change in the now. And what happens is, for so long with OCD, people view it as, oh, I've got OCD, how am I going to break this cycle? How am I going to get out of this? This is some really horrible thing to have. No, it's just a fear cycle. All that's happened in your head is you have a perspective that's been catastrophized, exaggerated, and you've got locked in that cycle. That's it. The problem what we've done is we've taken a disorder-like cycle, which is OCD, and then we've given it this view that it's something doing it to us, this like a terrible locked-in illness. No. It's most likely got a genetic biological component, but once you change your perspective, that isn't even activated. So it's not the thing we think it is. We are so scared of it. That is what makes everything feel worse and harder. Oh, how am I going to recover from this? Oh my God, I've got to do this big thing and learn all this stuff to get under this and to break this down. No. Yes, there's work to do to change your perspectives, but all there is right now is you're feeling some fear. You're not broken. There's nothing there. It's just a tiny biological genetic thing that sparks a thing when activated by a perception, otherwise not there. If that was the case, I'd be anxious right now whilst I'm speaking to you. I wouldn't be able to talk. I wasn't even able to do any sort of public speaking when I was suffering. I was so locked up, I was losing my mind my thinking all the time. I'd be sort of like, what was I saying? I don't know, I can't remember that. Can you ask me that again? Because I was so fused inside, internally in my head, that it didn't give much relief. It didn't give much breathing space. So I want to change the narrative around it itself so that we can see that it is not as scary as we think it is. We view it as this all-consuming, terrible illness. No, it's a perspective on fear, activated by biology, most likely, turned off when the perspective changes, back to normal. It isn't as scary as we think. Change your life structure. Look at your perspectives to change your beliefs where it's fueled and stuck. Work on those elements. You then don't feel fear. That's the core element of it. Okay? I realized so many of these things at parts of the journey, but not all till I really brought Albert Ellis's fantastic work, greatest work in a therapeutic field, all his work that he did. That changed so much of my thinking. But I was already so aware of these smaller changes from the other works I'd seen, from great motivational speakers, great people, great philosophers, drawing from all those things, that I saw that fear is something where we have a view, an idea in our head that something is a set way. But in reality, nothing is ever scary, because scary is an exaggeration to protect us. It's a protective mechanism against something bad happening. But in reality, nothing is like we think it is in terms of fear, because fear presumes that something is so bad, it's like 120% bad. Nothing can be 120% bad. That's outside the realms of science. So it could only be uncomfortable, very painful. That's not awful, 110% bad. That's when it goes into that outside of the scientific realm, it becomes that exaggerated perception. That's where we get locked in the anxious cycle constantly. So when you're looking at OCD, a large spark in the cycle And if you watch my videos on fear of fear, and we've got a webinar coming up on that in the next few days, the thing with fear of fear, all the anxiety cycle, most of the anxiety cycles, if you look at them, it's like a very fast snapback cycle. So where you've gone, oh my God, if I get stuck with that thought, then I'm stuck forever. But you don't even notice yourself saying that or thinking that. You then concentrate on the thought. That is a large part of it, fear of fear. Now, obviously, we come under it with unconditional self-life and other acceptance too, which are sort of to really release it when it doesn't release. But when we get better as well at using those tools, then we can become better at distancing ourselves with the thoughts and the anxious reaction. But that anxious cycle is fear of fear, scared of never getting out of it. And for so long I read about thoughts of thoughts, and I did a lot of that, but it wouldn't release because there was real things like bad health problems I was having, and I was very scared of the outcome. I couldn't leave that as a thought because I was scared of the outcome. So that's why acceptance and learning not to catastrophize really gets under there at the core, stopping that cycle sparked and then expanding, expanding, expanding. So that's key. So what we're going to be looking at in lots of the videos in the Instagram lives over the next few weeks, where I'll be talking to different moderators and the people who speak on all our webinars, give lots of motivational talks on the OCD recovery journey, as well as skills that they've learned all about anxiety and breaking down the fears, and how they've applied it to themselves. We're going to be looking at all the things that you can do in the now to change your perspective of things, tools to look at how to help with that anxiety cycle, those shifts. You're not broken. You're not like you think you are right now. You think that OCD is some all-consuming illness that you never recover from. It's complete crap. I can assure you that's rubbish. I've worked with 20,000 OCD sufferers in the last decade. You know, I see every scenario of OCD. There's no treatment resistance. There's nothing like that. There's loads of habits to avoid something scary. That happens a lot. And there is loads of irrational beliefs where people are consumed in a fear and they don't understand how to get out of it. That whole cycle is all the different journeys and all the different cycles in people's heads. That's what happens. We break down the fear, the illusion of fear. We look at why it's not scary as we imagine it to be. Releases. Takes practice. Takes time. Can be done. If it couldn't be done, I wouldn't bother making these videos and I wouldn't work with anyone. It works. It's obvious that was a key point to me, realizing that it was obvious it worked when I saw what it was. If you're scared of a spider, but then you learn a spider's not scary, then you haven't got arachnophobia, you haven't got any fear. Even the term arachnophobia implies that there's some additional illness in the brain. There isn't. You've just learnt a fear of spiders. That's it. It's all these bloody names that make people so extra scared, okay? You have a name for everything. I could be scared of a watch or scared of this. Oh, there's a fear of that and a fear of that. These are not diagnoses. This is just the guy's learnt a fear of that, okay? That's all it is. We overcomplicate all this stuff. It gets really lost. It's about looking at why we're scared of something and changing that. We have all these terms that make people feel so bad. It's even like all the names for OCD, POCD, ROCD, this is just thoughts, these are ideas. There's no POCD, there's no ROCD, there's no trans OCD, there's none of that. There's just OCD thoughts. We use the words to describe it because it's easy to describe it. But we have to also say, yes, they're words so that we have an understanding a bit of what we're talking about, but it probably should just be POCD thoughts. I'd like to change the narrative to that, but because it's used so much in the community, we kind of go along with it too, and overall give people a good idea of what we're saying when we use it. We don't go along with it in the sense of just go along with it. We go along with it saying, look, this is a term that's used to describe it. It's a popular term. The term is not a diagnosis. The term is not some change in the brain. It's a thought. I could have a thought about peanut butter right now. I haven't got peanut butter OCD. It's a load of rubbish. But that's how these things are. OCD community is full of so many irrational things. We're constantly having to change and direct and so many things. And no wonder people have been so lost for so long, because there's so many of these different avenues that are irrational where people get stuck, and we have to try and do what we're doing, which is show things rationally and what things are and discuss things, why they work, why they don't work. And you can ask us anything on here. Instagram lives every day. Well, we'll try and do them every day. I say we do them every day and then we get busy and then it's every week or whatever. But try and any questions you want to ever ask us about OCD, come on here, come on the Facebook group, message us. We answer everything. And so there's nothing too embarrassing to ask. You can always ask us. And we cover it. And there's 10 moderators in that Facebook group, so we try and cover everything. Guys, great to see you all on here. And I will be back on another Instagram Live very soon. Take it easy, guys. Bye.